This enemy is pain, and using these tools isn't exactly big brain. One of the things the community agrees on is that improving desert wells was an awesome update, and so maybe this same attitude could be applied to all of the features the community is ambivalent towards, starting with a mob which can only be described as absolutely ghastly. By the way, I would really appreciate it if you considered subscribing to the channel. That's an absolutely ghastly subs pitch, but I do believe in making Minecraft Bedrock a better game, and so if that's something that you play, I'd appreciate it if you did the same. Anyway, with that said, let's go right into the first mob, which is definitely worthy of the name, because the Ghast is something which could so easily be improved. The idea is it's a hellfire mob in the sky, and hearing the noise should terrify you. Don't get me wrong, that is still true. However, I think if they just made the explosions easier to hit back, then everything would make so much sense. Right now, there is a weird and inconsistent timing game, especially on Bedrock, where if you try to hit the explosion back, there's a real chance it just explodes because it doesn't register your input. I understand that it should be tricky to work out where the Ghast is going to move. They move in weird, unpredictable patterns, and so trying to knock that back in the exact right place can be hard in a split second, but knowing that even if you do get the angle just right, the game might decide to explode you isn't exactly fun. The same is my problem with chainmail armor. Mojang had a real success in leather and gold armor being worthwhile by making sure that gold armor doesn't attract piglins and that leather armor specifically keeps you safe from snowier snow. They've given you reasons to use different armor types, but what reason have they given you to wear chainmail armor whatsoever? It's literally worse than iron, and so the only reason you'd wear it is that it's rarer, but they made it a lot more common in the Village and Pillage update, and so it's a common type of armor that's harder to get than iron, but also inexplicably worse in every single way. So I think that they could fix this feature by going back and just giving it some slight bonus. I think an easy way to do that would be a slight speed bonus versus other armors, although I can see how that wouldn't make too much sense compared to the base armor. Why would putting on chainmail boots make you move faster than having no boots? But I also think that a slight hit speed debuff for people who try to attack you could be a really nice benefit as well. I think having to balance the different types of armors should be an actual question. Obviously, Netherite should be the best when it comes to defense, but when it comes to everything else, I think that should, could, and maybe even would be a question if I had my way. However, it's not the only thing that I would change. I think a Minecraft could easily fix a lot of other terrible features, and mobs are the area I want to talk about now, because the polar bear is living the polar opposite of my current reality. It's summer in the UK, and there's enough British people complaining about the heat, but let me tell you, I would love to be in this biome with this guy. However, I would also love it if he was even slightly useful. So the first thing I do is make it so they can't be invisible and attack you through a wall. What? Huh? Huh? What? 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 By the way, that clip was from a live stream where I was trying to survive 100 days straight in a row in Minecraft in real world time. It would have been 17 hours if that had gone right, and so having to restart after 10 days meant that it actually would have taken 18 hours and 40 minutes. I did actually do that in the end. It was on Christmas Eve. There's a whole fun story about that, but for now I just want to say the polar bear could be seriously improved if they took the inspiration from the frog of having different variants for each biome. The frog just changes color based on the biome, and sure, the polar bear changing color based on biome wouldn't be perfectly accurate to anatomy or anything like that, but it would be an incredibly interesting thing to see bears appear in certain types of woods that you'd have to watch out for if they had babies to defend. I think that the polar bear is a mob with some real potential, but right now it's just a holdover from a weird update from that dead phase of Minecraft. Speaking of dead things, the snow golem is a mob I think a lot of people only remember when they first hear about it, and it's a reminder that Mojang has a serious golem problem. In fact, I don't even think it's Mojang as a whole. I think there's just one guy in the studio who has a serious problem and can't stop talking about them. Hi, Jeb, how's it going? Thank you so much for having this meeting with me. I've been wanting to talk about my new mob idea for the new golem for quite some... Well, you see, this is actually more of a intervention than a meeting. But I thought we were never gonna do guns in Minecraft. No, it's about the golems you keep suggesting for the game. Oh, am I getting a pay rise? Well, you see, since you've joined the company, all you've done is create different types of golems. Yeah, it's been going great, hasn't it? It was a shame when we had that setback when the community didn't vote for the Copper Golem at Minecraft Live, and then we had that second setback because the community didn't vote for the Tough Golem at Minecraft Live, but I've got a really good idea. I've been working on a prototype for a Torch Golem, and the great thing about this Torch Golem is he would follow you around with torches, and obviously the torch wouldn't work as a torch, we can't do dynamic lighting, but it would be cool to see a mob following you around with a torch, wouldn't it? But like, and here's the best bit, I've worked out how to make sure the community votes on it in Minecraft Live. We can have 3 options to to vote for, and they could all just be different designs for the torch golem. Isn't that genius? Aren't I solving the community's problems? Actually, I think you should focus on making the current golems actually any good. But the Wither is really nice, right? The Wither is barely a golem, and you didn't make that, but let's talk about the snow golem. Oh, the snow golem is so useful. I mean, you place him down in your world, and then he creates snow when he's following you. And get this, he even has an aggressive ranged attack, which he'll fire at enemies, and it doesn't do damage, but it doesn't need to. The golems are perfect as they are, and I will quit if you try to make sure that they're any better. It has been 18 updates since you added the iron golem, and people only use it because of the thing it drops when you kill it. Oh. Well then I'll get to work on that. Sorry, I hope my footage from inside the Minecraft office wasn't too realistic. Speaking of realistic, gold weapons. This is something you would never see in the real world, so perhaps it's realistic that Minecraft has them as near useless tools, but I think that gold weapons could be made much more useful just by giving them exclusive enchantments. Gold tools used to be the go-to choice because it was the only way to naturally obtain efficiency 5 or sharpness 5, and those actually had some real value. So what if you did the same right now and gave access to enchantments like looting 4, or knockback 3, or all sorts of other things that would make endgame players want to use them in conjunction with another sword, and for early game players to feel like they're getting some decent end of the stick. I know that having exclusive enchantments seems to go against the vibe that Minecraft goes for, but I think this is an easy way to make certain tools more useful than others, because Minecraft has a long history of having near useless enchantments themselves. I mean, Bane of Arthropods has to be the best example. Seriously, there are 4 enchantments that do extra damage against certain mobs. There is 1 enchantment that does extra damage against fish, and if you're on Bedrock, extra damage to anything in water. We have an enchantment that does extra damage against undead monsters, an enchantment that does extra damage against everything, but it's slightly less, and then an enchantment that does extra damage against arthropods, which is to say bugs. Why would you ever need an enchantment that is specifically good against bugs? And I know you're thinking of some weird edge case like, well, what if I'm an exterminator? Even then, they all have incredibly low health bars, so there isn't even a good reason to use it over sharpness. Why does it exist? Well, it's one of those enchantments that just needs a buff to be worthwhile. Unless they want it to be a deliberately worthless enchantment, so it makes you feel worse about it, they could do what they did with previous enchantments. So Smite, for example, used to be just as good as sharpness, but only work against some mobs. Then they gave it a huge buff to make it better. Then also Fortune used to be generally considered to be worse than Silk Touch. You used Silk Touch for mining, and then if you had Diamond Ores, you would one day use Fortune. But now Fortune is actually worth using in the mining process because it works against iron and gold. You can turn those ores into blocks, and it's actually a really useful thing. In general, Minecraft is always making changes to enchantments to make them just a little bit more or less useful, to bring balance to the game. Why would they not want to bring balance to enchantments? The only reason I can think of is that they like that some things are objectively better than others, and that they like that some things are objectively terrible, so they can have the poisonous potato of enchantments. But we'll leave that behind for now and talk about swamp water, because if you don't know, water changes based on the biome you're in. A lot of people really like the nether water, which is red, and the end water, which is purple, but I really like the mushroom biome as an example, and basically every biome has a fun color to their water, but the swamp water is this ugly dark color. In fact, when you swim inside of it, you can't see anything because it's murky and dark, and honestly, just kind of terrible right now. I think though that making this swamp water actually have a reason would be really cool, because I think that Minecraft does a really good job at adding realism to bad things to explain why they need to exist, and so why don't you make this ugly, dark, hard to see through water have more nutrients in the soil, which would explain why it's so thick, and have those extra nutrients grow your crops faster. You would want to settle down and make a farm in a swamp if you ever could, and if you had a base which was in a swamp, you would specifically prefer it to be there because you could get more farming value. Most players would just build their farms wherever they could, but by giving people extra value to being in some biomes, you really do encourage every save to be different. This time, do you go near an amethyst geode? This time, do you go to a savanna for the beauty and the no rain? Or do you go to a swamp because you want your crops to grow faster? I would like that as a long-term player, but it also makes sense for the average day-to-day player, just like how furnaces don't make sense. So having 3 furnace types is not inherently a bad thing by itself. I mean, the one furnace can do everything, and then the 2 sub-furnaces can do certain categories of things slightly better, but that is where the problem starts to come in, because actually both of these furnaces have a big downside in that if you place them anywhere near a village, they become a job site. So they have the downside of becoming a job site, and they have the downside of not being able to smelt things outside their competency. There are lots of blocks which can't be smelted in either, by the way, like bricks, but they also have the downside of being harder to craft. So what is the upside to account for all of these downsides that these things, accrue? The answer seems to be that they give you 4 seconds save per smelt. There's no extra experience granted, and there's no fewer fuel used, even though, there is 8 seconds of smelting per coal. This goes down to 4 seconds in a smoker and blast furnace, meaning that all you get is a bunch of complexity that saves you 4 seconds per item. This can make sense in very, very large builds where maybe it's intended for, but for the average player, people look at the smoker and blast furnace and go, yeah, I guess that's meant for someone else, and a lot of players don't even really understand why they use them, because if the furnace covers 99% of use cases, why would you ever want to switch? There needs to be fun reasons to use things. The snow golem is all fun, no value. These two furnaces are all value, no fun. But it could be worse. I mean, look at rotten flesh. It's no value and it's no fun. Actively, I wish we had an enchantment just to burn this when it dropped, because there is no value to having chests full of these, but I have a real hoarding problem, and so it sticks in my inventory. It's a big problem, and so what is the solution? A block of rotten flesh. It could look something like this, and okay, that sounds pretty terrible, but honestly, being able to build something out of meaty blocks, but at least give you some reason to have it, I think this could work for lots of items that have that questionable value. Flint is one that jumps to mind as a great example. There is so much flint that you'll gather if you have a fortune-free shovel. Wouldn't it be nice if you could make flint blocks out of that? Just like how wouldn't it be nice when the sniffer gives you torch flowers? Those torch flowers could be more than just an orange plant on the ground. Imagine a torch flower that actually did the thing in its name. Okay, I'll admit I might be dreaming big here, and also Minecraft might not want to have a luminescent flower. I'm sure that was the intention when they revealed the thing, because it has torch in its name, but ignoring that, let's say that they could go more subtle on this and make a brand new potion where you use the torch flower as the effect. And obviously a lot of people would say, well, Mojang can't make a whole new potion type just to make the torch flower useful. Well, actually, what if they didn't need to make a new effect? They could just bring the existing effect of the glowing and put that on there instead. Think about it. It would make sense. When you eat a glow flower or consume it via this weird thing, then you would be lit up like a torch. You would be visible through walls, and this could be a great way to signal your location to other players in the world, or maybe you just want to glow for the fun of it and you'll light up the world around you. It doesn't necessarily affect me which way they go for it, but I really am convinced this is the original plan that they were going for. I think that obviously getting the spectral effect on Bedrock is really hard. There are still no spectral arrows. Every single structure in the bow works differently. It's a big problem, and the only problem bigger is the poison potato, but you know what? I'm not going to even address that today. I am instead going to say that thank you for watching this video. Please consider subscribing. I know every YouTuber says that, but not every YouTuber will have a vague threat if you don't, and isn't that special enough? By the way, greater than 99% of shark attacks happen to people who aren't subscribed to the channel, so, you can do with that information what you will. You can also check out my other videos. I think a couple of them will show up in this end screen, which is showing up now, so goodbye.